Hello, this is Dr. Kamani, licensed clinical psychologist. Thank you for tuning in. You are here for Black Women in Toxic Jobs, Taking Our Power Back, part two. And we are having a part two because part one was so popular. So many Black women reaching out and saying how much they resonated with the information. And so today we decided to have a part two to talk a little bit more about what to do in relation to getting ready to leave your toxic job, or let's say you've already left, okay? Because it's a process. It's not an easy process. I've talked about it on my YouTube channel. Again, Lifting As We Climb Consulting Wellness Services. And I've been talking about it for over a year. I've had guests talking about it because it's not an easy journey. Because a lot of times we invest a lot into our jobs and there's so much that we're putting out. But when it becomes toxic, when it becomes harmful to us, it's important for us to really pay attention to the signs and decide it's time to go. So we're here to talk about what are those signs and what is that process in which you are deciding to leave a toxic job, because again, it is not easy. So what we're going to do is we're going to have Danica and we're going to have Sondra on, and they are from different perspectives. Okay, so Danica is still at her job, but she's preparing to get ready. So we're going to talk about that, and then Sondra's going to talk from the perspective of when you've already left. Okay, so Sondra's running a little late, as you know. Sondra's in Bali, living her best life. Okay, so she was probably like doing something, really fun, and we wish we could all do. Okay, so again, if you have not already subscribed to my channel, please do so. Lifting Up to Climb Consulting Wellness Services. Also, to remind anyone who has not already heard that S. Emery Archer, the anti-HR lady, and I are collaborating for a masterclass, which is called Save Yourself, Channel Your Inner Harriet so that you can leave that toxic, hostile job with your sanity in your coins. Okay. So I put the link for the masterclass up on the screen already, and I'll just put it over here so you can see it. So I will have Danica introduce herself. And then when Sondra comes in, we will join her in, and then we'll get into the conversation. So again, if you're interested in the masterclass, the link is right there. There's Sondra. The link is right there. Hey, Sondra, living your best life in Bali.
Hi,
How
guys.
are you?
You all know this internet is crazy. I'm good. How are you,
Very good.
ladies?
Good to see you, sweetie.
Sondra just glowing, isn't she?
Is there
Sondra just
is that lag still happening,
no, it's
y'all?
good.
No.
It's good. It's
Oh,
good. So,
good,
Sandra, we
good,
just got
good.
started. So, basically, what I was just saying, I just gave the title for what we're going to be talking about today. That, leaving a toxic job is, or any job is a process, even a toxic
Yeah.
job. And so, I wanted to give us an opportunity to talk about that process, just so we normalize it for people, because people might feel like, I don't even know where to start. Like, I don't like my toxic job. I want to get out, but I don't even know where to start. So, we're going to talk from the
Mm-hmm.
perspective of Danica's going to talk about her journey as she's going through the process. You're going to talk more so in terms of you have left, but still, what was your process? And also the grief process that we've talked about a little bit, right?
Mhm.
Collaboration that we have coming up. Okay. So, Danica, if you could briefly introduce yourself, and then Sandra, you could briefly introduce yourself, and then we'll get right into the conversation.
Hi, I'm Dee. On the internet, I
Okay.
am part of H&D Abroad. Our channel is all about helping Black couples see moving abroad as a plan A for living a healthier lifestyle and creating generational wealth. I'm in this space today because I have connected with sisters like Dr. Kamani and Sondra, as I'm processing my way to embracing joy and living truly in balance with my personal needs and how I want to lean into my purpose. And that doesn't always align with the work that I'm doing. So I'm so super glad to join you all in this space today.
Awesome. Thank you. Sandra.
Hello, my name is Sondra, and my channel is From Lack to Legacy. On that channel, we focus on mindset, investing, and really just how to become a better investor. And what led me to that is that I wanted to retire, and I knew I was going to be retiring early, because of some circumstances that weren't favorable. I was ready, but because it was such a toxic environment, I knew it was time to go. And so, like many women, I was concerned about money. We're all concerned about that because nobody
Yeah.
wants to live uncomfortably. And so I found trading as a way to supplement my pension and the savings that I had. And so I want to share that with women because I've found in talking to people, most are so concerned about, can I afford it? Have I saved enough?
Mm-hmm.
What am I going to do? And I want you to
Mm-hmm.
know that there is a way. You absolutely, that should not be the reason. Finances should not be the reason that you subject yourself to a toxic work environment. There are ways to work around that.
Yes. And Sondra has pivoted from toxic. She's left, she's pivoted, and she is now living in Bali. She's from Chicago, like I am, and she is living her best life in Bali. Okay. So the connection might be a little off with Bali. Last time was a little off, but we're gonna make it work, right? And I just want to say to the audience that the way I met Danica and Sondra, I was watching a YouTube video and they were talking about Black women leaving toxic jobs. I contacted them immediately and I said, can we talk? Right? Can you all be on my channel? Because many Black women like Colette Elizabeth, my friend in the chat, Colette Elizabeth, we talk about these things about working in a toxic work environment and the impact that this can have on us physically, psychologically, and spiritually. Danica, I know even you and I talked after the live last week, and we talked about how many Black women we know in our personal lives or Black women that we've heard about who are suffering at these toxic
Mhm.
jobs. They're
Mhm.
suffering there. And even after they leave, they're still dealing with that psychological trauma in relation to
Mhm.
the toxic job. So, Danica, because you're again at a different phase, can you share with the audience what is your process in terms of getting ready to leave? And what has informed that decision of leaving?
Wow. Getting ready and what is informing my leave. You're right. It happens. Let's see. So those are things that are happening in tandem, but along the way, your vision gets sharper. You are understanding why you're doing, making the choice, or choosing yourself, I guess I should say that, and not putting yourself on the altar of sacrifice for an employer, or even, I don't want to make employers necessarily the bad guy. What I want to make the bad guy is recognizing what you're doing isn't working for you.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
the way that you are leaning into your work, whether it is the amount of mental or physical investment that you're making, when you are not respected for the level of expertise that you bring to a position, or if they're just not paying you well, those
Hmm.
are markers for, I might need to move in a space where instead of advancing someone else's goal, that I lean into my calling and into the work that I know that is mine to do in the world, that I am uniquely created for. The experiences that I've had along the way are meant to invest in growing my family, but also in the community around me. So for me, the process looked like, girl, you can't sleep. You're
Oh,
being awakened by anxiety. I forgot to do this. Does this person remember? To do that. Did I? Is everything ready for a project? It's normal to be concerned. It is not normal to wake up at 4:30 in the morning when you've gone to bed at midnight or 1 o'clock.
oh gosh, no, no.
That for me is a part of it. But also hearing when I took a break, and I think I
Hmm.
mentioned this the last time, to have my children to say, "Mom, I'm really glad you're taking this break because you're accessible to me,
Wow.
that you are calmer, and that we can spend more time together. And I have adult children, so we have adult
Mm,
children. To be able to hear your kids say, "Hey, mom, I love having you around," I
yeah.
don't want to take that for granted. To have my spouse to say, "Man, your eyes look clear. I can hear the your breathing in your sleep calm." So being able to contrast the person that I really in my heart want to be, and then seeing what I'm like when I'm not, when I'm leaning outside of that,
Hmm.
really pushed me toward, we've got to make a path for being confident,
Hmm.
um, in that if you can make money for somebody else, you can make money for yourself.
You can take those skills somewhere else.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Okay, so
Exactly.
they will pay you for,
Absolutely.
if they will pay you for your skills, then someone else will allow you to invest
Hmm.
in a way that is comparable to the lifestyle you deserve,
Hmm.
and with the health and wellness balance you know that you need. And
Yeah.
I'm so happy to hear that women are hearing this. So I'm 50 next month. I'm so glad to hear women in their 30s, in their 20s saying this cannot be it. This can't be
Mm-mm.
all. And
Mm-mm.
so that gives
Mhm.
me motivation to continue down the path to set myself up to exit.
Awesome. So, Danica, several things I want to comment on, and then I'll go to you, Sandra, is Stephanie Perry had a video about this, about leave your hostile job. And she talked about many times as Black women, the job defines who we are. We see our profession, we talk about our job, it defines who we are, but that a job is a means to an end. It is not supposed to define our reality. It's a means to an end so we get money so we survive. But when the job becomes all consuming and it's invading your sleep, you're not sleeping well, you're thinking about it, so now we're looking at the work life balance is off.
Mhm.
So you're spending way more time going to work, thinking about work than your family, right? And not intentional. I'm just saying that's what's happening in terms of the time commitment. And then when you think about too, when we're at a job, particularly a toxic job, when we're being harmed by that individually, our families, our friends are also being harmed because they're seeing us suffering and they feel helpless because they want to help us and they don't know how to help us. And
Right.
it really hurts them, particularly with our children. And Dr. Nadia Lopez talks about this a lot about the impact of being in that toxic job had on her physically, psychologically, but also on her mother and her daughter. So it's important for us to keep that in mind. And also, just in terms of recognizing at that moment, like, this life is not the life that I wanted for myself. And I'm so happy, like you said too, that so many Black women are waking up and saying, this is not what I worked so hard for. This is not the life that I want. My job is not all that I am. There's so much
Mhm.
more for me. So I'm so proud to hear so many Black women are doing this. And we're moving past a lot of the other stuff we're going to talk about later about fears of leaving and everything. So
Mhm.
thank you. What about you, Sandra? So now that you've left the toxic job, can you share in terms of what was your journey, your process? And is there anything that you may have done differently now that you're on the other side of that?
Sure. I couldn't agree with Danica more. I mean, I think it's not anyone's intent to vilify a particular organization or profession.
Mhm.
That's not necessary. But I think what is critical is that we look what it cost you. If it's
Yeah.
costing you more than you're willing to give, or it's costing you to the place where you're losing sleep, you see these physical manifestations. I think
Hmm.
it's like a clarion call to every sister. That's too much. Because if you were
Mhm.
like
Yes.
me in the process when I was through it, I didn't have a clue. I was also willing to believe that it was me. I promise you. I had internalized realized all of those things. Number one, I have shared this with you guys. I've been absolutely transparent. At that time, because I was nearing retirement age anyway, I was 53, 54 when I realized, okay, this is not working. This
Mm-hmm.
is not what I signed up for.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually going through the change. And so I thought, I was perimenopausal, whatever. I thought that was it. And I was so content with, okay, this is just the way it has to be.
Mm-hmm.
Until after that time in my life had phased out. And I'm like, whoa, no, 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 no. You are still suffering.
Yeah.
You are still physically suffering. And that can't be it. It forced me to look at the circumstances. It forced me to
Mm-hmm.
really step back and reflect that no, this isn't a physical thing. It's the opposite. These circumstances are causing these physical
Mm-hmm.
manifestations for you. It's not the other way around. So
Mm-hmm.
that was the first thing,
Yeah.
was being honest and having to really say,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh Lord, this is happening to me. It's happening to me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's happening now. How are you going to respond?" I think for so many of us, at least for me, there was a degree of shock. I couldn't believe that I had given myself and my life to a profession. And in the end, or nearing the end of this profession, after I'd given everything I had to give, this was what I was getting in return for for giving so selflessly. And it wasn't just me, every teacher I know. I mean, that's just par for the course. Teachers are
Yeah.
nurturers, they're givers, they sacrifice, we understand. But I think there comes a point when I think someone else shared this line from that movie, and it says, "But look what they're asking you to give." And that
Yes.
for me, when I to the place where I said, "No, no, 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 this is out of balance." So first I
Yeah.
had to have that honest conversation with myself that yes, it's real. Yes, it's happening to you. And yes,
Mm-hmm.
this is the physical manifestation in your body. That was a tough one for me because I
Mm-hmm.
think for a while I was in denial. I just
Yeah.
didn't want to believe that someone would be willing to treat me that way and to craft a narrative as if I deserved it, as if there was something that
Yes.
you've done that you deserve this treatment.
Right.
And that's where gaslighting comes in because there was a
Yes.
gaslighting going on in the workplace, but I began to self gaslight as if to say,
Mm-hmm.
well, wait a minute, maybe they're right. Maybe I have done something.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it is just my time. Sis, none of that is true. Nobody
Right.
who's worked
Reject
in
that.
any environment deserves that to be treated
Mm.
that way. It is unacceptable. And I think that it is going to be critical for us to have some, like I said before, some radical kinds of truth acceptance that yes, people will do this to you. Yes, this does happen.
Absolutely.
And I'm so happy that we're having this conversation because if someone had said that to me, I think maybe I would have arrived at that conclusion maybe a little sooner.
Mm-hmm.
But once I got
Mhm.
it, I didn't have any problem. Once I got it, I didn't have any problem saying, "Oh no, this is not for me." My problem was
Yeah.
never that I had self-esteem issue that I thought I deserved it. I was just in denial
Mm-hmm.
that it was happening to me. I couldn't believe that
Yeah.
somebody would treat me that way in the workplace. But once I got
Sondra,
to
can I
that
say
place where it was
something?
like,
Can I say
mm-hmm,
something right quick before you finish, before I forget? I think that's what's so hurtful to many of us is that in the
mm-hmm,
workplace, many of us are given 150% because we've already gotten to talk as Black women. You got to work twice as hard to get half as much, right? So we are overworking. Many times we're giving,
yes,
we're dedicated, we're doing all these things, and many times we're doing it very well. So we might be the star. Sondra, oh my gosh, she's so great. And then all of a sudden, again, that pet to threat thing that happens. Oh my God, Sondra, she's bad, right? That's flip,
yeah,
right? We know about the pet to threat. I already talked about that
absolutely,
before. But also, when we think about it, it's so damaging because then they go into the character assassination.
Mhm.
So the character
absolutely,
assassination, and you talked about this, I talked about this the last video, but just briefly, both of us talked about the humiliation that we experience in the workplace, which is so confusing because we're doing really good work. We're getting great performance evaluations, no disciplinary actions. And you're thinking, why
absolutely.
are they coming for me like this? It doesn't make any sense. I was demoted, didn't make any sense. All these different things are happening. So we're trying to logically make sense of it. But we can't make logical sense of it because we are not deeply insecure people. People who engage in these behaviors are deeply insecure people. So it's hard for us to wrap my mind around it, or our minds around it. You also said, and I gotta highlight some nuggets you said, right? You also talked about being honest about the impact that the job is having on us. So as
Yeah.
Black women, we are often told, don't stop, keep moving, girl. You got this. Don't let them run you out. That, like, all of this stuff, and we keep going.
Mm-hmm.
So we ignore the signs. We ignore that we
Mm-hmm.
having a hard time sleeping. We ignore our hair is falling out. We ignore all the
Mm-hmm.
doctor saying your blood pressure going up, girl. Girl, your blood sugar ratings are going up. All these different things, we start
Yes.
ignoring it. But when we
Yes.
stop and say, wait a minute, what is happening to me and what is contributing to why I'm feeling that way? You will see it many times it's a job. And I want to highlight to Black women, anyone watching this is so serious because research is now showing with the American Heart Association that Black women are dying at earlier ages. We're developing cardiovascular
Yeah.
diseases and other things at earlier ages. We need to pay attention to this
Mm-hmm.
because we are very much impacted by these external issues, including a toxic job. So that's the one thing. The other thing you said was it's like they humiliate you in such a way. It's almost like when I think about some jobs, some toxic jobs, I really think of them as like plantations. And I know Colette Elizabeth and I have
Yes.
talked about this too. A lot of them are like plantations. And so it's like if you step out of line, then you're going to get it. And it's like this buck breaking kind of behavior. We're going to put you in your place. Okay. And then I talked about, in terms of from my perspective, how it felt to me. Again, just to tell the audience, you may be offended by this word, but this is what I felt like, that it was psychological lynching, that they were getting in my head to make me think that I was incompetent, I didn't belong, all these other things, which I know
Mm-hmm.
was crap, right? But trying to get in my head,
Mm-hmm.
and the humiliation of I'm going to demote you and people are going to see you, and that's going to keep them in line. Okay. So that, and then the last thing I want to say before we move on is you talked about the cost of being at a job. And I'm gonna do a video on this because the
Mm-hmm.
cost that I know that I expended, the cost that I hear so many Black women in the chats, in the comments, my clients talk about, the cost of preparing yourself to go to work. So getting dressed, driving to the job, dreading it, giving yourself a pep talk before you can get out the car, okay? Going to the job, masking all day, masking how you really feel, still performing at a
Oh,
high level, right? Still performing at a high level, but all of this, then you leave the job, you're crying, you're dreading it, you're like drained because masking all day is exhausting. You're unhappy. And guess what? Then you're talking to your
yes.
friends, your family after you leave the job. So the job becomes all consuming when you think about how much time is
Mm-hmm.
spent at that toxic place. So I just wanted to just comment on just a few of those things, Sandra. It was just like on my spirit to say that. So, Sandra, can you share what was that process, right? So, for Black women watching now, right? So, Danica talked about, recognizing that it's not consistent with who you want to be. So, for you, what was that process?
Mm-hmm.
How did you do it?
First acknowledging it. I mean, that radical acceptance was the first. That's
Yeah,
what kicked it off for me. And then once I
yeah,
realized that this was going to be a struggle and I wasn't going to be able to leave immediately, because you would
mm-hmm,
hope that as soon as you would acknowledge that in a relationship, if my daughter was in an abusive relationship like that, I would say, oh, leave immediately. We would absolutely
yes,
say that. But
yes,
because it was the work that I do, it's the work that pays the bills. I wasn't able to pivot immediately, but I recognized, oh, this is not sustainable, because all of those things that
mm-hmm,
showed up in my body, they were persistent, they were
mm-hmm,
consistent, they were prolonged. I was like, okay, well, this isn't going to work. So the first thing I knew was that I was going to need some help. So I started
mm-hmm,
reaching out, and I said this before, I certainly secured one of the best therapists. I don't know. I felt so fortunate that I was able to even utilize those benefits. So, ladies, if this is happening to you at that job, utilize those benefits. I was like, okay,
yeah,
so this is what you all want to do. then I'm going to take this time for myself and I'm going to use those benefits. I got a great therapist on my team, and I started to build out a support team for myself. There were colleagues who had retired before me, who had left the profession, who had pivoted into other lanes. And so I started to talk with them and network. How did you do this? How, what are some things that I need to look out for? And I'm telling you, you just have to find the right people. You want to be careful too, because I
Yeah.
knew that I needed to come outside of my immediate circle. I didn't want
Yeah.
to be confiding in people who were right there in the same stew pot with me. That was too dangerous to
Mm-hmm.
do, I felt.
Mm-hmm.
But there were other professionals, there were other educators, there were in other districts, there were people who had retired who were far removed from my situation. And they were
Mm-hmm.
great resources because they were able to tell me, okay, if this is what you want to do, then you need to watch out for these dates. If you're going to retire, you need to stay until this date so that you maximize this benefit. You need to make sure that you consider that. So check around you. There are people who've pivoted before you.
Yeah.
Find those people, create a support team. And I would
Yeah.
say create a support team that is safe because you can't go this alone. The isolation is also a part of this public kind of lynching because not only
Absolutely.
do you start to self isolate, but you will find that you're isolated at work because, again,
Yep.
others are watching this whole thing and nobody
Yep.
wants that to be them. And they also are afraid that if they align
Nope.
themselves with you, they're going to get it next. So you definitely have to be
Exactly.
careful with who you choose to support you on your team. It may include your
I
clergy,
think
it
we're.
may include a trusted family member, but
Mm-hmm.
make sure that you have a support team. And then
Mhm. Go on.
from there, I started to do all the things I knew that I needed to do for my physical health. Working in
Mm-hmm.
meditation. I worked in physical activity. I just began to focus on myself too. So create a team, focus on those kind of self-care things you need to do. And then it was time to
Yeah.
plan. I had to have an exit plan. And
Yeah.
so those three things really helped me kind of navigate that time because I couldn't leave immediately. Create a team for yourself. Start to set some healthy boundaries where you are saying, no, this can't be. I can't stop you
Mm-hmm.
from treating me this way, but I don't have to keep giving at this level. I still need to be
Right.
proficient and
Yeah.
professional, and I will do
Yeah.
that because you're paying me to do this. But I'm going to start to set some boundaries. I don't have to be on every
Yeah.
committee. I don't have to do those things. Set healthy boundaries, start to take care of yourself, exit plan, and then it's time to execute. You will have to face down the fear. I'm telling you. I just don't know anyone who's gone through this without some intrepidation. Of course,
Dealing with the fear.
you're venturing
Yeah.
into new and uncharted waters. There will
Yeah.
be some fear. That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Face the fear. Trust me. I'm telling you, on the other side of that fear is freedom. It's freedom from
Yes.
those sleepless nights, and you begin. Look, you're worth it. I'm telling you, you're worth it, and then you can begin to create the life of your dreams because that's nobody's dream
Mm-hmm.
life. Working in a hostile work environment is nobody's dream life. Who are we kidding? I don't care what
Not at
that
all.
job do. I don't care what kind of accolades. That wasn't your dream. Nobody wakes up with that dream. So certainly
No.
do those things and take the time and execute the plan.
Yes. So you talked about self-gaslighting earlier, and I just want to mention that Marissa Price, who's also in the chat, she and I did a video about self-gaslighting. It is so real
Mhm.
because you get in your head and you start, it's like you're like, did that
Yep.
just happen? Like, what happened? That's why it's so important to have a good community around you that you can reality test with. And I cannot
Mhm.
stress enough, not at your job. Do not reality
Mhm.
test with people at your job because you never know how that might turn. People you may have trusted may betray you or don't have your back. And Sondra, I'm so glad you also said, keep in mind that as you are on this journey, you may lose people who you thought were your friends, or you may lose associates who you thought
Mhm.
were cool with you because they are looking at you and they see retaliation. They're like, oh, I don't want no parts of that. So I can't even associate with that person. And that's a loss too. So when we think about the grief from a toxic job, that's part of the grief too. And also Colette Elizabeth and I did a video, she's in the chat as well, about organizational lynching. So I call it psychological lynching, she calls it organizational lynching. Similar thing, right? So Sondra, I'm just wondering, what words of wisdom or what would may have you done differently? So now that you're on the other side, right? You said that you worked at the fair. Now that you're on the other side, is there anything that you may have done differently in that process?
Honestly, I think I would have reached out sooner. Had I had this information, and I'm so happy that we're doing this. I am so happy that to see these women in the chat, because if
Yeah,
that's you, had I known sooner, had I been able to confirm, yes, had I had the checklist and all this information, I would have been gone. I would have been like, oh, no, no, no. This is not the life for me. But because I
yes.
stayed in that state of denial, think the shock that I could go from pet to threat, that I had no clue. I just didn't even know that this was a thing. And so I
Yeah.
think in hindsight, I just don't you don't want to subject yourself to it, because the longer you're there, the more detriment it is to your body, your psyche, your family.
Mhm.
Everybody pays. And
And
so
it
I
doesn't
think
get
to
better, it gets
begin,
worse.
no, no, no. That
Hmm.
whole hoping that maybe it's maybe it's me, and maybe next month, things will change as soon as this season is over.
Mm-mm.
I promise you, it does not. People who
Hmm.
engage in that kind of behavior, that's who they are. And it
Yep.
doesn't matter if it's you or the next person. It could be your colleague
Yep.
today, it could be you tomorrow, because that's how they operate. This is the
Yep.
mechanism that they use to control you in that work
Yep.
environment. It's not going to change.
It's an oppressive system. It's an oppressive system. Uh,
Are. And so I would
exactly.
definitely say the sooner you can get a hold to this, whether the sooner you can recognize that this is happening and accept that,
Hmm.
start to plan your exit. Do not second guess. Get
Right.
your team in place, get that support team in place. But I think early detection, recognition, and acceptance, it's critical to
Yes,
your
it
health,
is. Yes, it
and to
is.
know and to stop denying it. Stop
Yeah.
self gaslighting, because that
Yeah.
only prolonged. That's what prolonged it for me. I was second guessing every day. I was like, this can't be happening. Surely
Yeah.
it's in my mind. Surely this can't be
Right.
happening to me. I can't believe 30 years of service, and this is what it was. And the
Right.
humiliation. Nobody deserves that. So, ladies,
No.
if this is happening, it is happening. You can
Yeah.
stop the second guessing. We're telling you it is real, and you
Yeah.
are absolutely worth it. There's another way to live. And I think too, I would have dispelled that narrative that there's nothing else that I can do, because I had been in that profession for so long. And I think so much of our
Mm.
identity is tied into that job in the profession.
Mm-hmm.
I promise you,
Yep.
those skills are yours. You're the go, you're the juice there. You can take that with you. They don't get to keep that. They don't get to take your dignity. They don't get to take those skills. And you can absolutely transferable skills. I'm telling you, that's the video we need to do, because I don't think we see ourselves, or it's difficult to reimagine yourself in another role that could support you equally financially and support you mentally, emotionally. And yeah, I definitely say early recognition and realizing that you do have transferable skills. Those two things, had I had those realizations sooner, I think I would have moved a little faster. I wouldn't
Yeah.
have stayed as long as I stayed.
Yeah. So just going back to, I think we talked about this previously, and I love the song "You Won't Break My Soul" by Beyonce. Like, no job is gonna break. Don't let a job break your soul. Okay.
Yeah.
The other thing is, Dr. Nadia Lopez. I'm gonna quote her again. No job is worth your sanity. So she said, "Why would we kill ourselves for jobs that will not mourn for us in our grave? Let's not do that." Okay. So,
Mhm.
Danica, I want to ask you, as you are in the process, I heard you talk about this previously, I think in part one, where you talked about you were trying to hold off the time that you would leave, like, oh, it's going to be 20 years. And it was like, wait, maybe 10 years, what enough, maybe 5 years, right? So I hear this so much from Black women. I did a video on this about Black women will say they might know it's toxic. They might start recognizing the signs as toxic, but they will say to themselves, I just want to hold on for a couple more years till I reach retirement. I just want to hold on for maybe 4 more years to my kid, graduates from high school or college.
Right.
Can you speak to that hold on mentality and how you were able to process that? And coupled with that, Danica, is the fear. So Sondra talked about it. I talk about it all the time in my videos. There's so much fear about leaving a job, even if it's toxic. Okay. So Danica, can you talk a little bit in terms of your process with coming to terms with this hold on, I'm gonna hold on, I'm gonna try to stick it out, and the fear that you're working through in relation to leaving a job?
Well, so much that Sondra has said, just my soul. I mean, she's just, it's like my soul says, my soul says yes. My soul
Yes.
is saying, you see me, you have been in my shoes. I'm not by myself. I
Mm-hmm.
think the holding on to the job, it comes from, some of it comes externally.
Mm-hmm.
It's you need $1 million to retire. You want to retire at the top of your at the top of your profession. You want to have
Mm-hmm.
certain have achieved certain career milestones. Some it's just, I want to have a certain amount saved because that keeps me safe. That feeling of, not just the work and my identity are tied, but that there's safety in getting that check every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And so when I leave what I know, literally we're convincing ourselves with, well, at least this is the devil that I know. I don't know what's going on out there. I don't know if those other people are going to do it to me and do it to me worse.
Yes.
So, and so we hold ourselves there. I mean, it's
The bar is so low in terms of our quality of life. What
right.
type
And
Yes.
of life
that
is that? I
we're
always say,
willing.
I want to know devils. I don't want to know any of them. The ones I know, the ones I don't know, I want to know any of them.
Right. That and so, when I'm thinking about what holds me to my job, it was because the vision for myself was very small.
Mm.
I told my daughter this morning, I said, she's working, she's in a government career position. And I said to her, I was like, these jobs suck the creativity out of you. Literally, I could,
Mm-hmm.
I remember when I started, and I started with all of these ideas that I had
Mm-hmm.
been in other spaces where I had been able to express and grow. But the process that I'm in, really pushes you into, this is how we do things. And you don't even realize that you're losing that. Creativity means more than just, I can see the possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
It's, you lose little bits of hope. You lose little bits of
Mm-hmm.
personal momentum that
Mm-hmm.
push you forward, and you don't even know you've lost it. And
Mm.
so when I was thinking about, what is going to make the difference between me retiring in 20 years to get that whatever amount of money that would help me to feel safe to retire, it was encountering other Black women who are talking a talk of, there is another way, where I could
Yeah.
see my life experiences, the cultural norms I grew up with of, you got to get that
Mm-hmm.
bachelor's and master's and PhD and the good job and the six figures and the
Mm-hmm.
car and the house. Like, it wasn't until people said I had those and I still wasn't. And look, when I let it go, look how much more, not that I was able to acquire, but look
Yeah.
at how much more living
Right.
life could come from me. And
Right.
that I could first nourish myself. And
Yes.
then I could be in a space to nourish others. So I know that the Exodus Summit community specifically is what nourishes me, not just from one point, but it is a continuous group. And majority of these women I have never met before in person.
Yes.
Sondra, I keep saying, Dr. Kimani and I were talking, we were like, maybe we need to go on and go to Bali. But the intentional connection, sharing your heart, creating the vulnerability that allows you to see that holding on wasn't worth it for them, but you can see the other side. That is what made the difference for me. And like I said, so as I begin to hear the messages of, you don't need all that money,
Yeah.
sell your house, the things the physical things that you're holding on to aren't giving you the quality of life that you desire. Letting go is allowing your hands to be open. I think I said this before, allows your hands to be open to accepting the newness that is available to you.
Yeah.
Now, that does not come without fear, because literally you're leaning into the wind. But like I said, when you have community, when you have other Black women that are also doing this thing, who are saying, sis, if you need, literally, y'all, if you need to talk at 1 a.m., at midnight, call me. If you're in the car crying, we're going to get through this together. You need to know you are not alone.
Yes.
The fear is there. And, from a mental health practitioner educational background, when you deny yourself the fear, the guilt of maybe letting parents down because you having the PhD or you having the directorship or the CEO position, you didn't achieve that for them. You are experiencing real emotions, and sit with them, but do not be held back by them.
Yes. 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 So, from what I understand, Dee, just acknowledge the fear is there, but still move forward, still move through it, right? Because we're thinking about not only the quality of your life, but the quantity, honestly, because a lot of Black women are dying early, like I just talked about earlier. And I know even at that toxic job that I resigned from, Black women were dying a lot. So dying, you having strokes, heart attacks, all this stuff. And they were not that much older than me. So that's important to remember. You also talked about community, talked about the Exodus Summit. Can you just share with the audience who are not familiar with the Exodus Summit, what that is?
So Exodus Summit is a community specifically for Black women. Of We are on Facebook. We share our journeys through posts on Facebook. We're there also. There's a community also where we're sharing out on Instagram. Stephanie Perry and Rashida Dow started their journey, shared their journey, and have brought over 10,000 women into community with each other. Let's see. So I went to the Morocco meetup. Sondra was at the Cancun meetup. It's where we can come together to talk, to connect, to motivate, to set goals, and then achieve them. These are women who believe in accountability. When you raise your hand and say, I want to make progress in an area, and y'all, I take full advantage. When you raise yourself and say, I need an accountability partner, or I want to learn more about, or I'm interested in seeing how I can retool identify the skills that can allow me to work for myself or to create in a space that is more in alignment. There are other Black women who willingly share and come alongside and hold you accountable, will walk with you through that journey. And so, that is the Exodus Summit community. It is how I've been able to make progress, whether that is through the fall actual summit where we get together with educational sessions. And literally, Dr. Kimani, Going into the October, I was like, okay, we're going to do this for 5 more years. 5 years, our youngest son will be out of. I was like, baby, a month after we went and got our residency in Mexico. 1 month after, this is how we are taking action. And we took him with us. We were like, if you want to stay here, you're welcome to stay here. But we're going to give you the opportunity to come with us if that is your desire. Baby, we're not waiting. We are moving forward with
Yes.
parents who may be ill. We're addressing those issues. People who are going through grief, who are in toxic jobs, who are saying, I'm so underwater,
Yeah.
I can't get out. Dr. Kimani has provided, you and S. Anne Marie provided a lifeline through through your conversations with Stephanie Perry, and that I am the better for it.
Oh, yes. And that comments like yours, comments that I've received from so many Black women, it fills my heart and it makes me know that sharing my story, sharing my healing journey has been worthwhile and is worthwhile as I continue to do it. And it is my hope that by sharing these stories, that we help more Black women off the plantation. Okay, that we help more Black women off the plantation and that we live a life that we deserve. And yes, as Emery Archer, we talk very straightforward about getting off the plantation, and we talk about again in our masterclass, if you have not heard about it, the masterclass is Save Yourself from That Toxic Hostile Job, Channel Your Inner Harriet so that you can leave that toxic hostile job with your sanity and your coins, because these jobs can do a number on you in terms of psychologically. It's a form of trauma. It's self-gaslighting. You start gaslighting yourself. You become so consumed by the fear of leaving that you become stuck and you just stay there, right? And you
Mm-hmm.
feel this sense of just immense grief in relation to the job. Like you said, Sondra, why would they do this to me? Right? So you sit up there trying to, why did they do this to me? And even after you've left the job, I've talked to Black women, even after they left the job, they're
Yes.
still stuck and tied to the job because they've never processed the grief. So there's the anger, the depression, all these
Mhm.
different things. And the master class is just to help you work through all that. Okay. So you all both talked about fear, right? And I want us to spend some moments on fear. So, Dee, you
Mhm.
talked about it. Sandra, you talked about it. The fear can be crippling. It can be immobilizing, right? I knew before I left that talk show, I was there, I think about 3 extra years before I should have left. I should have left 3 years before that, right? But I was immobilized by fear. And like you said, Dee, the expectations of others, listening to what other people are saying to me, particularly if they're from a different generation. We know as Black people, we work so hard to even get these jobs. So many times, like our elders or whatever will say, girl, don't leave that job, don't leave that job. And so then we do even more stuff. And then they project their fears onto us. Girl, you end up homeless. Oh my God, don't do that, don't do that. So we have to work through those fears. And Alicia Renese, I love this quote she said.
Yes.
We love Alicia Renese when she says,
Mhm.
don't let fear rob you of your freedom. That's the one
Yeah.
thing. The other thing is, I think what Stephanie Perry has done for so many of us is to show us as Black women there's another way to live, and we don't deserve so much stress and heartache and just so much of that. We deserve ease, and I fully embrace that. We deserve ease. And she's talked
Mhm.
about why try to wait to retirement? You may not even make it to retirement. This job might kill you before you get there. Okay. Let's say you stick it out. What is the quality of your life once you get there?
Mhm.
It doesn't make any sense. So, Sandra, can you talk a little bit about your experience of working through the fear? Okay. And I just want everybody to know we are acknowledging the fear is there. We're not saying, oh, no, 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 you won't feel any
Mhm.
fear. You will feel probably tremendous fear, but you still need to move past it. And
Mhm.
again, I'm saying this to Black women who are ready to leave. I'm not here trying to convince anybody. If you're not ready to leave, if you want to stay there, that's your choice. Okay. I'm talking to Black women who are ready to leave a toxic job. So, Sandra, can you talk a little bit in terms of your ways you dealt with the fear?
Sure. I think acknowledging the fear and recognizing that yes, that's what this is. I mean, from physically being afraid to go back into the workplace because I wasn't sure what that day was going to hold. I'm talking about basic, just rudimentary fear. I was afraid of I was one of those, I cried all the way to work. I promise you, I thought that it was the change. I thought this, well, I've got the worst menopause in the world. I cried all the
Mm,
way going there. So I was physically afraid of not any person, but what that day would hold. I didn't know what the day was going to hold,
mm,
how I was going to fare during the day. Would I make it through the day emotionally and not break down? Because Lord knows you can't do that in the workplace. But just acknowledging number one, okay, this is fear. But I also had to kind of examine that fear and why did it have such a hold on me? And
mm,
as I was in therapy, I began to unpack that there was just a spirit of fear that had followed me from childhood, from some childhood residual traumas that I hadn't dealt with.
mm.
And not
Yes.
I'm that fear. So being in a state of fear, being comfortable that, okay, this is a part of my life. I've been fearful in many situations before. This isn't any different. I was familiar with fear. And so it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't so appalling to me. I think if there, for a person who may not have had the same history as me, they may not have recognized immediately that this is part of my life.
Sandra.
They would
Mm-hmm.
have recognized immediately that this and been steeped in fear in so many other areas of my life. It
Mhm.
didn't even dawn on me that this is unacceptable. So
Yeah.
to go back and do that trauma work in
Yeah.
therapy
Yeah.
helped me recognize and acknowledge there's a common theme here. There's a thread here. So
Yeah.
that was first. And then I promise you, my therapist challenged me to just acknowledge and deal with some of the small fears. Look, I had a fear of heights. I'm afraid of mice. I'm afraid of butterflies. I was afraid of a lot of things. And
Uh-huh.
so I started to deal with just my fear of heights. You guys, I know it sounds crazy, but I would do things like I jumped off a 100-foot tower, scared to
Wow.
death. I climbed a
Confront your
mountain and
fears.
I had to confront the ones that I was ready. I could
Yeah.
confront my fear of heights. That was a little easier than confronting my fear of my employer or losing my job. But as I
Oh.
began to do those small things, it's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, wait a minute. That fear is still there, but I can still climb this mountain. I can
Yes.
still go to. I took a helicopter ride to where was I? I was in where the Grand Canyon. I did all of the things
Wow.
that I knew I could handle. And from there, it
Yeah.
just made me realize, wait a minute, you can't control the fear. You can't control it cropping up, but your response to it, whether you hide and cloak or whether you meet it head on. And I'm telling you, hiding from it, denying it, and cloaking, it doesn't solve anything. It just delays that
Makes it
situation.
worse. It
It
makes it
makes it
Mhm.
worse.
worse. So
Avoid
facing
it.
those small fears, facing
Mhm.
those and coming out on the other side whole. I didn't break.
Yes.
Nothing happened. I began,
Yes.
it was like, oh, wait a minute. If I can do that, then surely I can do this. I can face
Yes.
this. I can go in and have this very difficult conversation that probably should have been had 2 years ago, and
Mm-hmm.
nothing's going to break. Now, this
Yeah.
relationship might be changed, and that's okay. I can
Yeah.
live with that. What I knew was that I wasn't going to break. I wouldn't
Yes.
break, and it emboldened me. It gave me the confidence to have some
Mm-hmm.
very tough conversations, to go
Mm-hmm.
back to past traumas, have those conversations, have those that were happening in the present day, and just
Mm-hmm.
say it. I learned to, even if you're fearful,
Mm-hmm.
even if your voice is shaking and you are trembling, your teeth are do it anyway. I
Yes.
promise the
Yes.
reward. You build this capacity in
Mm-hmm.
yourself. You build this kind of confidence. It's like, okay, I took that
Mm-hmm.
on. I can take this on too. So
Absolutely.
I think it was the process of, of course, the help of therapy, just
Yeah.
starting to confront those fears. And
Yeah.
it doesn't stop fear from infiltrating my life today. But now when I see it, I know exactly what it is. I'm like, oh, that's you. Oh, fear is a construct. This is something that's in my mind. And most
Yeah.
times I'm perpetuating, I make it worse by
Mm,
just playing it over. It gets in this loop, and you
mm-hmm.
play that loop over and over again, and it feeds on itself.
Yeah.
So
It
I
sure
learned
does.
to stop doing that. I stopped playing into the fear. I write it down.
Mm-hmm.
This is what it is. I'm calling you out, fear. This is what you are,
Yes.
and here's what I'm going to do. This you will not rule me. I'm not going to let it linger, because
Mhm.
then all of that stuff that's happening in your body, you just prolong and you subject your body to it. And
Yeah.
so now when I sense it, I pay attention to my body. And when my
Mm-hmm.
body is saying, okay, that's how you respond to fear. That's what this is. What are we going to do about it today? Not tomorrow.
Yes.
What are we going
Yes.
to do about that fear today? And
Yeah.
even if it's just acknowledging it, writing it down, and then writing down what you're going to do, or writing down some things that you think you could do before you get the courage to enact it. I'm telling you, fear it was the biggest monster for me. I was afraid,
Yes.
would I have the money? It was that monster that lived under the bed constantly. It never left me.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the projected fears of other people.
And
So
now
how
I
did
can
you deal with
honestly
that?
tell you,
How did both of you deal with the
you know
projected
what?
fears
I
of
got
other
this from
people?
Exodus Summit. I got this from Exodus Summit. You nix the naysayers, nix them right away. I'm sorry, you do not get a front row. As soon as I find people who are willing to gaslight me, I promise you, I don't ask any questions, and I don't make any excuses, and I don't give any explanations. That's new for me, because I would have
Mm.
probably tried to, softly exit and not
Yeah.
want to hurt anybody's feelings. Now I don't care about your feelings, because you've exhibited to me that you don't care about mine. You made the
Mm.
first move. You don't care about my feelings? Guess what? I'm I don't care about yours. We're even here. We're gonna both, this the game we playing? Okay. I'm never going to be rude. I think you can do all of this respectfully, because
Yeah.
ultimately you're just trying to get free. I'm not trying to hurt
Yeah.
anybody's feelings. I'm not trying to pick a fight. I'm not trying to burn a bridge. I'm not trying to do any of that. But what I am going to do is be free from anything that hurts, harms, or doesn't. If it doesn't feed me, it doesn't have a
Yeah.
place here. It doesn't have a place
Yes.
here. And it's
Yes.
easier now for me to recognize that. And I pay attention. The body keeps score. We've gone over this before.
Absolutely.
When your body
Yes.
sends you a signal, do not ignore it. Do not call it
Mm-hmm.
something else. It
Mm-hmm.
is what it is.
It is
And
what it
and now
is.
I just take it on head on. I'm sorry. I don't have time for it, because it takes up the joy space. You can't have that fear. Fear and joy, they don't reside in the same place.
No, they
No,
don't.
you can't.
Uh-uh.
Fear will squash out all your joy, and that's not the point of this. Exodus Summit helped me see that. Connecting with other women who had fearlessly made these changes. Representation is everything. Being able to
Yeah.
see a sister, and Danica, like you said, being able to call on a sister and she show up for you.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh my God, this was new.
That's
So now
joy.
I nurture those friendships. I don't keep around
Yeah.
any dead weight. If you show me
Huh?
that you aren't Team Sandra, that's okay. That's not a
Right.
problem. Before, a
Yes.
younger Sandra would have been clamoring, trying to figure out, well, what did I do? And how come you don't? Danica shared this. Why don't you like me? And what did? No, that's okay. I've got 25 sisters over here who think the world of me. I
Yes.
love them and they love me. I nurture them and they nurture me. They are out there. Make them a part of your team. It will change
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah. And I think what's so important too, Danica, I'm gonna get to you in a minute, the importance of centering joy, not dread. Because many of us have settled for living a life of dread because of
Hmm.
what we think we need to have, because of what society is telling us what we need to have, and that we need to prove our worth. So getting external validation, but we're constantly doing it because it's elusive, right? So nothing we do is ever good enough. But we're
Yeah.
saying as Black women, we are inherently worthy. We are grounded in greatness, and we need to remember that. And people who try to tell us to stay in an environment that's harmful for us, then we have to either don't tell them our plans, or we need to find And we need to find a community that supports us, right? So, Dee, what about for you? What did you do with people who are like projecting their fears about staying there onto you?
Yeah, so I think Sondra and I's life, when I look back when I was younger and really craved acceptance and validation, I think you carry that throughout your life, but its relevance has begun to shrink, and
Mm-hmm.
to shrink to people who I respond to those who are in a circle of um, of influence. What I've allowed myself to do is to hear them,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of times their words are about fear, but there's something underlying that. And so I've shared, my husband and I've shared on our channel how, listening to our parents, listening to his 94-year-old grandmother really agonize about, I know you want to do what you want to, y'all are grown and y'all gonna, do what you want to do, and I can hear that tug in her voice. And so people who have a deeper meaning to me, I open my heart, not to convince them, but to hear them thoroughly. And then there
Yeah.
are other people that I've been like, baby, you don't have a passport. How are we having a conversation about me moving abroad?
You don't have a passport, right?
You
You're
talking
not even following
about
my dad's
it's
conversation with
so
me.
you talking about it's so dangerous, and you live in the most dangerous city in the country.
Right.
You telling me
Right.
Mexico and all of these other places are so dangerous, but where you live, there is gun violence every
Mm-hmm.
day. People are dying every day, and so what I've and the
Black person in
reason,
America. Just being a black
right,
person in America. Yeah.
and like Sondra said, what I recognized is that I had to grow the circle of people. You have to get a tribe who believes in that same mindset of freedom, of ease, of leaning into your best self.
Mm-hmm.
That work comes as a balance to your life. Your work is not your life.
Mm-hmm.
And that there are joys that you should be noticing and experiencing every day.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Another thing I want to make sure that I touch on that Sondra said that just my heart. When you have embraced worry and fear as a part of your life from childhood,
Mm-hmm.
you have to create space that lets that go.
Yeah.
It's hard to, I mean, it's like, if I'm not worrying about something, then something is wrong. When I'm
Right.
when I'm not talking about something makes me afraid, or having that level of fear come up inside of you that you are reaction, you have a reaction to, that takes you away from a process that you're leaning into to build your joy, to build the space for creativity and the things that give you um, that give you life, where you feel like I'm truly taking a breath and living.
Mm-hmm.
You do have to you have to be intentional about acknowledging it, but it's going to take time to fill in those spots.
Yeah.
Um, they're the Bible, if you're a Christian, talks about, not only am I casting demons away, I have to replace it with something. And so the intention about letting those fears go, acknowledging them and letting them go where they don't provide the motivation, the reaction to those things. You also have to be intentional about replacing them. Get to know yourself,
Yeah.
because when you don't recognize, when you don't when you have forgotten the you that when you weren't worrying, when you weren't fearful, get to
Yeah.
know that inner child. Get to know,
Yeah.
whether that's through play. Alicia Renice, thank you.
Yes. Yes.
Whole
Absolutely.
conversation about play. I went and got
Mhm.
my jacks and got
Priceless.
on the floor.
Yes.
I have a
Priceless.
I have a hula hoop. I enjoyed those things. And I was just like, I should be doing more of those things. When you begin to say, I haven't made time for those things, then you can see where the fear, where the worry, where you have displaced yourself and put in things that don't serve you.
Yeah, and I want to say that's one of the most serious signs about a job is toxic. And one is that you start becoming a different person, right? And you start having these signs and symptoms. The other part that's so painful, and I know I experienced it, and Sandra sounds like you experienced it as well, is when the job triggers inner or unresolved childhood traumas. And it
Yes.
starts to mirror these other things. And then that's why therapy is so important. So Sandra talked about therapy. I talk about therapy all the time. Therapy is so important for you to address those unresolved issues. And again, jobs can many times trigger that because you have a parallel existence about what happened to you in childhood. It's happened to you in many ways at your job. That's a horrible way to live. Okay. So again, therapy, I will put information about how to access a Black therapist in description section. Okay. So I know we're a little over time, but ladies, if you're with me, stay with us, right? Because it's a rich conversation. So I want to speak to something that is so unbelievable that we talk about fear. So we have talked about in terms of the fear, in terms of processing about leaving. There's a whole level of fear that I just became aware of. The fear of being caught on LinkedIn about what you're posting, your employer seeing what you're posting. I've heard about
Mhm.
this. I just heard about it again
Mhm.
today about there's people at the job or human resources will be spying on you through LinkedIn, right? So that's one fear. So people fear like I don't want to go, I want to leave, but I'm scared to even find out how I can leave. So I talked to Anne Marie about this. I was like, Anne Marie, I just found out about this thing. And so we talked about it. So in terms of the masterclass, if you're fearful that your employer or somebody else will know, number one, you need the meeting link and the meeting ID. Okay. Number two, you is set up so that your face will not be seen. And number three, if you want to comment, you can use a different name. Okay. So I don't want fear to keep tripping us up, but I'm just telling you, I didn't even know about this. Until somebody told, I was like, what? They're doing what on LinkedIn? They're following you on LinkedIn? So again, I want to say that. So as we're winding down, and I want to say also that I so appreciate Dee and Sandra because again, I've never met them in person. Literally, I saw the video, we connected, right? And when I think about the power of our conversation currently and the previous one, you know, Danica, you sent us a video that was so heartbreaking. It was a teacher
Mhm.
talking about why she's leaving the field and the struggles that she does, all she goes through to be a teacher and just feeling like this is a huge disappointment. This is not what I signed up for. And she's leaving the field. And Sandra, I think you said that after our last conversation, that teachers were reaching out to you, girl, how do I get out of here? Okay.
Yeah.
So just to let the audience know that Sandra and I are collaborating on a masterclass coming up. So after the Save Yourself, channel your inner harriet and channel your inner harriet so you can leave that toxic job with your center of your coins with Anne Marie. That's going to be the end of June. So you got 2 more weeks, okay, for that. Sandra and I are going to do a master class towards the end of July for teachers. For
Yeah.
teachers, if you're ready to go, okay? And we'll give you more information about that. And I do have a waiting list. So we have a waiting list, okay? So if you want to be on the waiting list for that, this information will be on the screen, okay? It'll also be in the description section. So if you want to get on the waiting list to hear about when we launch the masterclass late July, please get on the waiting list, okay? So, Sondra, when you talked about teachers, teachers are so dear to my heart because I can't imagine being a teacher. It just seems so difficult. But as I also mentioned in my previous videos, that I previously worked for a school district. Okay. So I know a lot about teachers, administrators, all that they go through is
Mhm.
amazing. And I can say, but I don't know, school districts are treacherous. I had
Yeah.
no idea how treacherous school
Mhm.
districts can be and how many immature people are in leadership positions, deeply insecure bullies, and they all protect one another in the system. Okay, so that's a whole nother conversation. Okay, but what I
Mhm.
would like to hear just briefly, because I know we're going to talk about this more in the master class, can you speak just briefly about working through the grief of leaving your job as a teacher? Because I know
Yeah.
you were so committed to the work, so committed to the kids,
Mhm.
your colleagues.
Mhm.
Can you just briefly talk about how did you go through that grieving journey for yourself, that grieving process?
I think teaching is unique in this way because I would imagine in other workplaces, you love the work and there are all those personal things, but you don't have the attachment of 30 other little souls. And for so many teachers, it just boils down to I can't let these kids down.
Yeah,
That's why you're here. I mean, you would
yeah,
almost take a beating rather than deal with the idea that you dropped the ball for 30 souls that were counting on you. And that's the way most teachers frame that. It is important. It is the center, it's the crux of the work. And
yeah,
so having to leave that, to be honest with you, the hardest part, the job, once I realized I was leaving, I was happy about that. But I wasn't really, I don't know. I probably would have stayed a little longer if it wasn't so treacherous or the environment hadn't gotten so toxic. And so
mm-hmm,
that part was the part that had me caught up. It's like you are really leaving these kids that you love. Oh, I still get emotional about that part
yeah, yeah,
because that's the piece for most caregivers. It's the people. And so
yeah,
those relationships, and I promise you, here's what has helped me. I can still be in a relationship with those people. I'm not
yes,
leaving those people. And
yes,
I can't make this up. I just got a call yesterday from a former parent who told me about a student of mine that was near and dear to my heart, that he had graduated summa cum laude from, yes, and he's on his way to college. And he had so many challenges when he was in my class, but we had formed such a special bond. And so
mm,
what I do now is, well, when you're in the field and you're in the classroom, I'm not generally friends with those families on Facebook, but now I'm free. I can be friends
yes,
on Facebook with people. We talk on Instagram. Now I can openly, we can form friendships. There's no conflict of interest there. Nobody has to talk about favoritism. Oh, she's friends with this family
mm,
and not that family. I can be friends and befriend anybody that I want. So those kids that were
yes,
near and dear to me, I can reach out to them. And many of them have aged out and they are no longer a part of the public school system. They're in college and they've gone on.
wow,
They're my friends now. So it is such
oh,
a joy. I have plenty of my students who are now my friends on Facebook and Instagram. They keep me up with what's going on. And so I can still nurture that
yeah,
part because that was hard. That was really sad. That was the part that when that would get in my head when people would say, "Oh, you're going to let them run you off." I didn't feel like running away from the money. The money didn't bother me as much. I knew I could make more
mhm,
money. But it was that, are you really going to let them rob you of what you love to do? The kids are why you come. And once I
yeah.
got over that, wait a minute, if I leave this place, I can still have relationships. I can have closer relationships with them now because I am no longer an employee of that system. We can
I'm not
actually be
shackled.
friends.
I'm not shackled. Yes.
Yes, I can nurture those. And so I've allowed myself now the freedom to make phone calls, to reconnect with those people. And it has been such a gift to get those reports back of, little Johnny that you were worried about in kindergarten. Little Johnny is now the CEO or a doctor somewhere. It
Wow.
brings me so much joy. So that has helped with some of that grieving.
Yeah.
That was probably the hardest part, the part that tugged
Yeah.
at my heart the most
Yeah.
was losing, not, and also colleagues, but again, realizing that just because you're separating from that organization, it doesn't mean that you have to separate from those people and those relationships. And now
Yeah.
I'm free. We can vacation together now. Are you kidding me? I have gone on actual vacations with some of my former parents. It is a joy. And so we don't even have that stuff to consider anymore. But I wouldn't have known that. I was just dealing with the fear of, oh no, this part of my life is going to be
Yeah.
robbed from me. But
Yeah.
in actuality, that's not true. What it did was free me up to have real, authentic, full relationships, not just a
Mm,
teacher student or parent teacher relationship. These are now my friends and family, and that we can talk openly and freely. And I don't have to worry about any conflict of interest with the Board of Ed or any of
right.
those kinds of things. So I think you can almost cheat yourself, because I didn't even know, it didn't dawn on me that that would be a possibility. And that's
Yeah.
exactly has happened and unfolded. And I love those calls when they call.
That's beautiful. And something else I was thinking about is for you, Sandra, is that you've created a whole new life in a whole different country. And so, Danica, I think you talked about, people will say, girl, don't go there. It's dangerous. They're like, wait a minute. And I remember when Stephanie was interviewing me in the Black Women in Toxic Job, Leaving Toxic Jobs, she was like, people say about leaving the country. She's like, girl, you live in St. Louis. Like, what are you talking about? So let's have a good frame of reference for that. So, as we're winding down, ladies, if there are Black women watching this right now, they're watching this right now, and they dread their job. It's Sunday, and we started at 5 o'clock Pacific time, my time. That was the worst day of the week for me because I knew I had to go back to the job on Monday. If there's a woman who is experiencing dread right now watching this, what would you say to her if she really wants to leave the job but she feels stuck by fear? What would you say to her, D?
Acknowledge your feelings. You know yourself best.
Mm-hmm.
Take the time to hear yourself
Mm-hmm.
and take a step, whether that is to get connected to a community, get with a good qualified therapist who can see you, acknowledge you with respect,
Yeah.
but you have to move because the voice will never get quieter. It
No.
will always grow and grow, whether that is what's coming from your physical body, those symptoms will continue to grow, but the anxiety will not go away. And I'm going to tell you, that's because I keep convincing myself that even if I took tomorrow off, I'm gonna want the next day off too. So when you know that that domino effect is in
Mhm,
place,
mhm.
it's telling you something,
Yes.
and you owe it to yourself. You owe it to, especially if you are a parent or
Yeah.
are an influencer of young people. They need to see that there is another way. You can lead even in fear, even when you don't know what the next 5 steps are. You know that taking a step toward hearing yourself and honoring your body, honoring what you know is not serving you and letting it go, start the process. You can start somewhere, make a connection. The best days of your productive life are in front of you when you choose yourself.
Yes. And it's so important, D, too, that if you are a parent or you are around children, it's important for them to see you navigate life challenges. It's important for them to see how you stand up and say, no more. I'm not allowing the situation to bully me or to control me or to demean me. I am choosing a different path because we want them to know that they can choose a different path too when things happen to them. So thank you for sharing that, Dee. What about for you, Sandra?
I lost you guys. So I lost a whole
Oh,
chunk
you
of that
lost the
conversation.
question? Okay, so I was just saying in closing, if there's a black woman watching this right now and she is dreading going to her job tomorrow, she hates it, she's dreading it. What would you say to her in relation to the process of leaving and addressing those fears?
Yeah, I agree with you, Dee. If you think that it's going to get better, I wouldn't hold out hope that this situation is going to resolve itself. That's the way they operate. That's the system that you're in, and clearly, this is not isolated to one job, one profession, one field. We are all from different walks, and we're having
Yep.
the exact same conversation. And so, you aren't alone. Number one,
Nope.
there's help for you, I promise you. And it doesn't even have to really cost you, because I don't know that if you find yourself and you can't readily get to therapy, I promise you there is a sister in this chat. There's a
Mhm.
sister right in front of you who's willing to listen. And that
Yes.
that for me, that is so helpful in finding the people who are willing to listen to you, see you, and they understand how this thing works, and they're willing to help walk you through. They're willing to hold your hand, because I promise you, some nights I just wanted somebody to hold my hand and tell me it was okay, that it's
Yeah.
okay. It's okay. You can cry
Yeah.
here. It's safe here. You can tell your story here and you will be safe. If that's all you can do, just do that little thing. Just make those tiny little steps toward choosing yourself. It doesn't have to be a big move. Maybe you aren't ready. Maybe you can't leave right now for financial reasons or whatever they are. But make those tiny steps where you show and you're choosing yourself. Because I know this sounds funny, but you are watching you. Your inner child is watching you, how you treat yourself. And if
Absolutely.
just that act of kindness towards yourself, that I'm going to do something to negate this, I'm going to reach out and ask a friend for help, I'm going to be vulnerable enough in that moment to say, this is what's happening to me, I need your help. Do
Yeah.
those small things, and I promise you, it'll get you will find these people. They will find you. It's just the way this thing works. And those small things will be get bigger things, and you can make bigger moves. Not everyone can make that big move to just go in and call and say, you know what, today's the day. I quit, I'm moving on. That might not be that's a big step,
Yes.
but a smaller step, reaching out to a trusted friend, a trusted sister, and just having that conversation and starting to do those things that help heal you. Start there, start small. That's what I would say to anybody. Don't try to take it all on. If you aren't there, you aren't there. But do
Yeah.
those small things that you can to nurture yourself, to take care of yourself, to make yourself a priority. You're just going to have to do it for you, because nobody is going to ride in and save us. Nobody
No.
wrote in
No.
to save me.
No, no. And you know what both you have said too is knowing that you're not alone, knowing that it's a process, and it's so important to access resources. So community, right? So friends, supportive family, other people in other community spaces. Again, therapy. I will put that link about how to find a Black therapist. There are free therapy resources that I also mentioned before. The Loveland Foundation and the Boris Lawrence Henson Foundation offers some free therapy services. Please contact them about that process. So there are options available for you. As I mentioned before, Anne Marie are having a masterclass coming up at the end of June, just in a couple of weeks, about save yourself, channel your inner Harriet so you can leave that toxic hostile job with your sanity and your coins. The registration link will be in the description section. It's 2 days. Again, if you have fears that you will be found on the mess, you will not. Okay, so I want to just say that. And we will deal with the psychological parts of leaving a toxic job, like we've talked about today, the fears, confronting your fears, the grief, all that, and the post trauma after you leave the job, all of that
Mhm.
stuff. Okay. And Anne Marie and I are toxic job survivors. So we're trying to channel inner Harriet to get you out. Okay, sis? So, Dee, can you share? And then, Sandra, I'll ask you, Dee, can you share what services you offer, like your YouTube channel, and how people can contact you?
Right. So we are the letter H, the word and then DEE abroad. We are on YouTube and Instagram. I love hearing how the work is working for you. Every opportunity you can take to hear Black women talk about how they're getting free, I encourage you to embrace it, because just yesterday on the channel we were talking about a topic that's holding people back, and we presented several options for people to consider. That, I think, is the core of the work that I do. I know that it's also that Sondra does. So you are welcome to reach out to us in community, learn along the way, because we're literally charting our process. We're hoping that share will make the difference in more people being able to take steps on their own journey.
I appreciate that so much. It just reminds me of why I'm doing my YouTube channel, right? That I'm still healing from a toxic job. I'm not healed. I'm still healing, but I want to share the process with other people so you can see and you know that it's possible. There's other options for you. So thank you, Dee. What about for you, Sondra?
My channel is From Lack to Legacy. And on my channel, we focus on mindset, abundance, and investing. Because for me, a big part of it was, while I knew I had a secured a pension, we're all concerned about money and if we're going to have enough. And so we focus on ditching a scarcity mindset, that mindset that there isn't enough. I
Yes,
promise you, the universe is vast. There is enough. But we need some tangible things, something that we can touch. So, how do we make money? We focus on becoming better investors and how to actively trade stocks and options so that you can generate income. You can generate this income from anywhere in the world. I'm in Bali now. I do a live stream twice a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays where we actually train women to become better investors and trade and invest in the stock market so that you can generate that money. If that's what's
yeah,
going to secure you, if those dollar signs, if that stack of cash is what you need to sleep at night, we're going to show you how to take the little bit that you have, and it doesn't take a lot, and make sure that you secure that. And then in turn, make that money work for you. So check us out on
yeah.
Tuesdays and Thursdays on our live stream.
Awesome. So just having that level of financial awareness and how to make your money grow is so important. So thank you.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to briefly read the chat and then we're going to wind down. Okay. So people are just saying hello, where they're coming in from. So Brooklyn, Cali, Seattle. My last day at a very toxic work environment is this Friday. Congratulations. Let's see. Absolutely, it's normalized, but losing sleep from job stress is not normal, right? Yes, gaslighting and the group thing dynamic. Once a target is isolated within a department, yep, it's horrible. It's horrible. Colette talked about the organizational lynching, like we talked about before. My supervisor talked about me behind my back to other managers. Yeah, mine did too. I could do a whole thing about that. Just so unprofessional. And it wasn't even based on my work performance. That's what was so just
Mm-hmm.
nasty about it, right? I agree. You should keep your goals on the down low. Finding your tribe outside of your job is best. I can share with Sandra more than I would share with my coworkers. LOL. So she must know you. Okay, agreed. The control and fear is ingrained. FU money is so important. Yes, it is. So Adelia talks about a lot about that, right?
Yeah.
Adelia, a big girl will travel. Big girl travels the world. Dr. Kamani, that is me. I just need to hold on to this date or this year. Shaking my head. Yes. Reevaluate that, please. And maybe go to therapy and reevaluate that and process that. True, Dr. Kamani, why are we tolerant of knowing any devils make it make sense? It doesn't make any sense. We need to reject that too. A very painful experience with a fellow sister who was also being harassed turn on me. Ooh, I know, ooh, that's horrible. I had been there for her for many years, but when I looked to her for support, affirmation, I found that I was alone. I've been there too, sis. So
Mm-hmm.
all skin folk and kin folk,
Me
I have
too.
videos on my channel about that. I'm sorry, so sorry that happened. So again, we're supporting one another in the chat, like we talked about the Exodus
Mhm.
Summit, right? Thank you so much. It's all good now. I'm gone, and she's still there being mistreated. Oh, I wish her all the best. However, I no longer respond to her texts. Good. Devastation, right? That is so deep. We are not alone, yet we are set up to feel this way. It's better to stand up for yourself in a shaky voice, embarrassing yourself over saying nothing, I've realized. The
Mhm.
self-loathing, excuse me, that happens when we don't say anything because that anger starts becoming internalized and it can turn into depression, okay?
Mhm.
Fear, legit trying to part ways with its comfort. The fear is from, so having a fear, going against a group when you're a social animal, it's normal to feel fear when sticking up for yourself, but these people will try you. Yes, they will. Hoping to find some such success at some point during the work in therapy in the meantime. Good job.
Mhm.
Excuse me. This is such a needed conversation. Right. When folks show me who they are, I believe them and let them know that they do have the privilege of occupying a place in the sacred part of my beautiful soul, period. Necessary conversation, sending compassion to all who can relate to this process and all trying to make it to the other side of this. Hater, Portugal had a big role in the slave trade. So again, if people trying to get into your head, right? Hello, beautiful ladies. Please hit the like. Yes, please hit the like button for this button. Thank you, my friend Colette Elizabeth. So everyone, if you're watching this video, please put the like, click the like button, okay? And then you realize the same hater lives in Charleston, South Carolina, right? So they telling you don't go to Portugal, but they live in Charleston, South Carolina, right? Thanks for the reminder. Um, and I've realized the opposite of for worry is not apathy. It's about self-belief that you can work through the process and allowing yourself to feel nervous in the process. Yes,
Mhm.
we often come from households where you get yelled at if you don't do something quick enough, for example, causes issues. That's deep. Can't reject negative outside energy. It's necessary to connect with healing, outside energy in its place. Inner world can only do so much really deep. Yes, exactly. Thank you, Dr. Kamani. Hello, Sondra and Dee. Oh yeah, the HR lurkers are real. Yes, they are. Watch out on LinkedIn.
Mhm.
LinkedIn fears are very
Mhm.
real. Yes, my company stalks all employee LinkedIn profiles, and my coworker openly gossips about it. It's crazy. I left the academic field, then found myself in finance, and I'm here now because I legitimately became dangerously convinced I had nothing to offer. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. You have so much to offer. I just want to reject that. This channel is a blessing. We are more. The hope here feels real and attainable. Good. The call is heard and received. Good. Sondra, how do we find out more? Go to From Lack to Legacy. So I'll put both of their channels in the description section so you guys can follow up with both of them after. The universe is always on time. Yes, it is. Okay. So in closing, I just want to say you may not be able to see my shirt. It says, I am my ancestors' wildest dreams. And that is part of why I have these
Yeah.
conversations too, because I know my ancestors did not go through all of this to get me to where I am to deal with that nonsense, that toxic job, right? And I want you to remember that our ancestors did not go through all that they went through for you to be suffering and miserable and dreading any day of your life, any day of your life, okay? Your
Mhm.
life is a gift. And I want you to remember that. And I want you to know that you deserve better, okay? So, again, in closing, if you have not already subscribed to my channel, Lifting Us with Climb Consulting Wellness Services, please subscribe. And as my dear friend Colette Elizabeth said, please click the like button to this video and share this video with as many Black women as you know. Because unfortunately, if you are a Black woman, either you are in a toxic job or you know somebody who is, okay? So please share this video. I want to say again to my friend community, Dee and Sondra, thank you so much for this part two. And again, I'll have all the resources that I talked about in the description section, including their information, including the Anne-Marie Archer masterclass that we're doing, and then the waiting list for the masterclass that Sondra and I are doing, which is for Black educators. Okay. So, everyone, again, thank you for tuning in. Have a good rest of your evening, and I will see you next time. Dee and Sandra, if you guys can just stay on for a moment, okay? Bye, everyone.